Through coaching and being mentored, I have learned that you have to slow down in order to speed up.
Welcome to the Network Marketing Made Simple podcast. I am your host, Scott Aaron, and each and every week I'm going to come to you with short, simple, and powerful tactics of how you can grow your network marketing business, brand, bank account, and impact on those around you. And just remember, network marketing is not easy, but it can be made easy with simple steps to create the success that you truly deserve. Welcome to episode 82 of the Network Marketing Made Simple podcast. And if you are a new listener, then welcome. And if you are a returning listener, then welcome back. And as always, if you are a professional network marketer, new or old to the business, or you're an online business coach, and you are still solely growing your business through the means of Instagram and Facebook, and you are not yet leveraging and using the power of LinkedIn, then head over to my website, www.scottaaron.net, where you can fill out a free form to schedule a 15-minute coaching session with me, where I can learn more about you, your business, and how we can potentially work together. So in the string of interviews that I've been doing, obviously some people are related to network marketing, some people just entrepreneurship, but it's all applied the same way, and people can really apply whatever business you're a part of, whether it's a coaching practice, network marketing business, brick and mortar, online business, it's all applied the same way. And my guest today, Emily Harman, is someone that I connected with on LinkedIn, and we just clicked, as you can say. You know, she's got an amazing background. You heard it in the introduction. And again, I always liked the other person telling their story, not me doing it for them. So Emily Harman, welcome to today's episode.
Thank you, Scott. Happy to be here.
So again, thank you for your time. I know that you have a very productive schedule. So let's jump right in. Tell the audience a little bit about you with your background and how you actually got into the quote unquote field of entrepreneurship.
Okay, so my background is I went to the Naval Academy back in 1981. I was in the sixth class of women to graduate from the Naval Academy. And when it became time for us to choose what we wanted to do for service selection, meaning if we wanted to fly planes or go into the Marine Corps or in surface duty, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And a friend of mine came up to me and said, you know, you ought to think about the Supply Corps, which is the business end of the Navy. So I ended up choosing the Supply Corps, which I think is what, you know, helped shape my career. The first duty station I was at was the Supply Corps School, which was in Athens, Georgia, where we learned all about how to be a Supply Corps officer. And then I was stationed on a ship, which was a submarine tender out of Norfolk, where I was in charge of paying everybody on the ship, as well as all the people on the 12 submarines that we tended to. And then I ran the ship's laundry and the ship's store and the ship's dry cleaning and the barber shops. So I got a lot of business experience there.
Sounds like it.
And basically I, you know, had a couple other duty stations, but I ended up in the field of contracting. And I worked in government contracting, buying services for the Navy, like professional services, people that work side by side with our acquisition workforce, helping us develop acquisition strategies for buying major weapon systems. And then I got into buying major weapon systems, like negotiating with Lockheed and Sikorsky for helicopters or cockpits for the helicopter and different things like that. Then one day I was asked to move into the small business office at the Naval Air Systems Command, and that was not on my top 1,000 lists of jobs I wanted. I did not want that job because it required public speaking, and I'm an introvert, and I was really nervous about public speaking. And it also required, planning events and just being outgoing. And I'm really an introvert. So, but I took the job, and I'm so glad I did, because it's the best job I ever took. So that's a bit of advice for the listeners is, sometimes you don't know what the best thing is for you. And sometimes something that you don't want turns out to be the best thing that could ever happen to you. And then from there, I was the small business director for the Naval Air Systems Command, helping small businesses that wanted to get into naval aviation figure out how to do that as prime or subcontractors. And then ultimately in August of 2015, I was promoted to the senior executive service, where I was the head of the small business office for the Navy and the Marine Corps, being the senior advisor to the Secretary of the Navy on all small business matters for the Navy and the Marine Corps. So that's how I got into it. And I just retired at the end of May 31st, 2019, and went into starting my own business.
Well, congratulations on that. So let's talk about that transition, because as we connected before, most of my listeners are in network marketing, they're in entrepreneurship, but like we talked about, no matter what the vehicle that people choose, whether it's network marketing or a traditional entrepreneurial brick and mortar business or an online coaching practice, it still takes the same principles and same habits to create that success. So we also spoke about the fact that, in the military, you learn discipline, you learn consistency, you learn pushing through the pain. So what do you think were some of the greatest lessons that you learned being now a retired military professional that you were able to apply to your now entrepreneurial business?
I think what I learned is a lot of, like you said, a lot of self-discipline and just sticking to something even on days where you have a bad day. And I learned that a lot in the small business program office as a civilian, but I was working with military folks. And that is, in the federal government, especially in the military, the main companies that we work with are big companies, not necessarily the entrepreneurs, like the Lockheed Martins, the Boeings, the Sikorskys, and they all have a place. But trying to help the small entrepreneurs find opportunities was something that took a lot of persistence, even when I didn't always feel like we were making progress. Never gave up. And it ended up paying off in the long run, because in 2018, the Department of the Navy and the Marine Corps spent $15.4 billion with small businesses as prime contractors. Yeah. And that's over 2 billion more than we did in fiscal year 17. So people started to see the benefits that small business can bring, the agile capability, the responsiveness, ability to pivot. And so what the military taught me was to just stick with things. And you've got to know too when something's not working. But I had a vision and I knew it would work, and I just stuck to it. And maybe something that really helped me with doing that was when I was a freshman at the Naval Academy, or a plebe. I tore the anterior cruciate ligament in my knee, and I was on crutches and in a full-length plaster cast from my toe to my hip.
Wow.
For 7 weeks. And that required a lot of discipline and stick-to-itiveness, because it was just hard. And your freshman year there as a plebe is hard enough anyway, but being on crutches with taking about 18 to 20 semester hours of class required a lot of discipline. So I think some things that I learned in the military I kind of take for granted, but as I've been working with more people outside of the military, I do realize what the military taught me.
And, similar to you, I was kind of faced with some challenges early on. I got into entrepreneurship. My father actually went to federal prison for 2.5 years when I was 18 going on 19. And that's how I actually got involved in entrepreneurship. So I had to push forward. I had to figure out life as it came to me. And that's the one thing I don't have, a quitting mindset. I don't have a giving up mindset. I have a how can I figure this out mindset. So that brings me to my second question. Now being on the entrepreneurial side, but even being the military veteran that you are, and knowing not being on the civilian side and just people in general, why do you feel people give up on the dreams and goals that they have?
I think some of it has to do with self-confidence. It's really hard. There's definitely times when I want to give up, but I just try to go exercise I try to keep a positive attitude. I hang around with people that are motivating. I'm in a support group. I think having a coach is helpful because everybody gets down, but just recognizing that, not beating yourself up for it, and keep moving on, and counting the small wins. Don't overlook those. Give yourself credit for the small wins.
I love that. So you said something, surrounding yourself with the right people, and circle of influence is a topic of conversation in entrepreneurship when you're looking to up level yourself. Did you have to make some difficult decisions when you were making that transition? Maybe seeing maybe a pattern in some of the friends and family that are around you, and honoring, respecting those people for who they are and what they stand for, and meeting them where they are, and not so much being influenced by them. Because you hear this all the time, that you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So how important has it been for you as an individual, but how important it is for other people to make sure that they're surrounding themselves with the right people and being influenced by the right people?
Oh, that's definitely important. And I'm in a group now that meets every Sunday night on Zoom, and they're all entrepreneurs, kind of people that don't really want to keep their day job. They don't want to show up to work every day from 9 to 5. They want to do something entrepreneurial, and we are all holding each other accountable. We report back on what we want to accomplish for that week, and we make sure we do it. And we are a support group even during the week. There's some people that don't quite get it, like my mother, but I still want to hang out with my mom, but I just take what she says with a grain of salt. Like, I've gone into podcasting, and I retired from the federal government at age 56, which is a young age to retire. She just retired at age, I think, 73, 74. So she doesn't really understand podcasting, and I can just tell in her voice, okay, all right.
Whatever that is you're doing.
Right. And I just take it with a grain of salt, because most of the people that I'm hanging around are supportive. And I'm not saying she's not supportive. I'm just saying I really don't think that she gets it. I mean, partly because of her age, I think, and just the way she was brought up. So you just have to understand where people are coming from, and they're not always coming from the same place that you're coming from. And that doesn't mean that they're wrong. They're just looking at the world through their lens.
And the other thing is that we can't choose our family, but
right.
But we can choose who we're influenced by. And that's the thing, I'm now impacting my father. I've self-published 2 books. One became a bestseller, and it motivated him to write a book. And, sometimes the child and the son or the daughter becomes the teacher to the parent at sometimes, but not all the time. Because
that's definitely true. I'm a parent, and I recognize now that parents, just because they're parents, don't mean they know everything. Doesn't mean they know everything.
Exactly. And sometimes you learn from their mistakes of how you can become better. And my father, he made some mistakes, and he did some things right. He did some things wrong, but I learned from his mistakes how to not make those same mistakes, but improve myself. So you almost have to thank those people around you who maybe have the wrong mindset, or have the wrong money relationship, or have made certain, gone down different paths in their life, because it's actually, when you see other people doing it, you're like, whoa, that doesn't make sense. I don't want to make that mistake. So thank you for showing me what not to do, so I know now what to do. And I think that
but
it's important.
But that goes back to being coachable. You have to be able to see that, and you have to be coachable, and you have to be able to take advice, and you have to be able to look at yourself and figure out where maybe you need to make some changes as well.
So let's talk about this for a second. In network marketing, and I'm sure you've come across people that do network marketing, and it's a great business model. But the fact is that there's a lot of power given to the people that are the quote unquote top leaders in those specific businesses or companies. And when you start leading a team, it almost becomes a managing type role, where you're like, listen, I have a system, it works. You just have to follow this. You don't have to do anything else, which I feel is creating limited beliefs, because You only know what you know. And I was instructed and suggested by my enrolling sponsor when I started network marketing 6 years ago was to always invest in yourself outside of your opportunity, coaching and masterminds, which I heavily, heavily invest in. So speak on two things. Number one, how beneficial it's been for you to coach with others. But number two, how important is it for individuals in entrepreneurship, no matter what the business model, to invest in outside coaching to better themselves?
Well, I'm actually just learning about that investing in yourself because growing up in the military, or, not growing up, but being in the military since 2018. And then I got out of the military and became a civilian. So working for the Navy for 38 years, I never had to, quote unquote, invest in myself. The government paid for the training, and the training was awesome. And then when I was trying to move, when I decided I was going to retire and I was going to do something else like podcasting, and I want to be a coach. I want to coach individuals, and in the federal government we call it mentoring, but it's kind of the same thing. I recognized that there's some training I wanted to take, and when I saw the price of the training, I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. And someone pointed out to me that I never really had to invest in myself. And it is important to invest in yourself. So I have spent quite a bit of money. You have to be selective on who you want to work with and picking the courses, but I've spent some money learning how to do the things I want to do when I retire. And it was definitely well worth it.
So Emily,
I would call it investment.
And that's a great thing. There's a difference between an expense and investment, and not to cut you off, but just share with the audience, how much have you personally invested in yourself?
Just in the past 6 months, I spent $6,500 on one class, which was called Make It Work Online, which I think was a really good class. I got a lot out of it. The challenge part of it was that it was a 16-week class, and I was doing it while I was also still working in my senior executive role. So it took a lot of self-discipline, but I can tell you what, I would not be where I am today, which is retiring on May 31st and having a website up and having 8 or 10 episodes of a podcast ready to go and having a business model by 1 June. I wouldn't have been there if I had not invested in myself and taken that class.
I love that. And you can't even it's when I talk to people about my coaching and what I charge, and I say to people, I said, listen, you're paying for my time. That's what you're paying for. And the value of what you get from this, you can't even compare what you're going to get from this, because it's so hard when people say, well, that sounds expensive. And that is those are the phrases, the self-limiting beliefs, but also the negative connotation and relationship with money that holds people back. Because I share with people all the time, the value of what a coach charges, you can't quantify what the return on that investment is going to be. Because I've had people that have 4, 5, and 6x'd their income from me showing them what to do with my coaching program, much like you're going to be doing for people. So to say, well, what can I expect? And, that's expensive, or, how do you feel you can charge that? You can't even quantify that investment. It's entrepreneurship is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's the compounded interest over time that builds and builds and builds and builds. It's not and listen, I say this to people all the time, Emily, listen, if you want to go play the lottery and, try to get rich quick and hit it big right away, go to the local gas station, get some scratch offs, because you'll have a better opportunity doing that than trying to find a quick fix. Make sense?
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And part of being a coach is you want to work with people who are coachable, because some people aren't coachable and they're only going to get out of it what they put into it. So another thing that I've been exploring is, I think it's Jen Sincero has a book. You're a badass
making
about money or whatever. Making money. So we have a small group of us that are reading that book and exploring our relationship with money, and what our values are about money, and why do we feel like, oh, I don't know if I could charge that much or whatever. And Kathy Heller, who's another person that I listen to on a podcast, Don't Keep Your Day Job, she talks the same way about money. She says, money is a resource. You wouldn't say, oh, I just want just barely enough oxygen to get by. That's all I need. If you make more money, no one wants just a little bit of oxygen or just a few pieces of clothing. So money is a resource too. And just because you make a lot of money doesn't mean that you're going to turn that into being a bad person.
Right.
You can be a good person with that money and give more good back to the world. So I'm working on reevaluating my relationship with money.
And I think everyone had, I had a moment this morning that I had to like shut down my thought and, realize that I do deserve to make a lot of money. I do deserve to be wealthy, because the more wealth you have, the more wealth you create, the more wealth, and you can create more with that, which giving back and doing more with it. And life is about abundance. We were not put on this earth to just struggle and to get by and to live paycheck to paycheck. That's not what life is all about. I think it's important to experience that at one way, shape, or form when we're younger, when we're learning the value of money, and when we're 18, 19, maybe our first job. But as we get into adulthood and we're raising families and we're establishing ourselves, money mindset is everything. Your vibe and the energy that you put around anything will attract and bring back to you what you want. It's so key. So,
yes.
and it's funny, my now fiance, instead of bringing flowers on our first date, I actually brought her that book. And she was at a transition in her entrepreneurial career, and she said that book couldn't have come to her at a better time. And whether it's a podcast you're listening to or a book that you're reading, things happen on purpose. There's always a reason behind it. So, Emily, what's the best piece of advice you could give the audience for that person that's listening to this that is doubting themselves? They're not seeing the money that they want in their network marketing business or their entrepreneurial endeavor. They're focusing on exactly what you stated. They're not focusing on the small victories. They're focusing on all of the, oh my God, this is happening to me again, and the losses and all of the overwhelming anxiety. What piece of advice could you give to someone that is feeling that exact way right now?
I think it's a good idea to get a coach that can help you look at yourself and see through that. I mean, I just interviewed on my podcast somebody who left her job after 11 years. She was miserable and she wanted to travel more, and she wanted to start a travel business. And she went on it before she left her job. She went on a retreat to get some clarity. And after, to have some time to think, get some clarity. And after she went on the retreat, her coach asked you, okay, what did you come up with? She goes, well, I really wanted to get clarity and I'm not sure. And the coach said, Robin, you know what you want to do. Just book the damn ticket.
Yeah.
So that's what a coach can do for you. That's what she said in my, in the interview that she had with me. So even coaches have coaches.
The teacher is always a student if you find the right one. And I'm the same way. I still coach with people. I'm part of a really big mastermind. I will never, ever stop investing in myself, because I can take that knowledge that I get and then I can bring that back to my clients to push them forward. So,
right. And investing in yourself is a term that I'm still working on using, because I always looked at it as spending money, and that's a lot of money. But I'm changing my attitude about that now. And one thing I talked about with my roommate from college is when it came to spending money on our kids, it was like, yeah, I'll spend this much money. No brainer. But then why do we have such a hard time investing in ourselves?
Yeah. I mean, it's like this guilty conscience, like I should not be giving something back to myself because I need to do this for everyone else. But it's about self-love and self-care.
Right.
You need to take care of you before you can fill the cups of everybody else around you. And it does take time. Like that is a huge mindset shift that a lot of people have to make, but it does take time. And when it does start, when that wheel begins to turn, it doesn't stop. You're going to completely understand the idea and the principle of self-worth and self-confidence and self-posture and self-giving. Because when you can do all that for you, you learn how to then do that for everyone else while still filling your cup first. And I think that's so important.
Yeah.
So before we sign off today, Emily, what are three, and you can just do some rapid fire stuff. What are three easy, quick, tangible things that someone can do in network marketing or entrepreneurship on a daily basis, maybe things that you do to constantly push themselves forward, whether it's big leaps or just taking those tiny baby steps every day?
I keep a calendar. I'm very organized. I think that really helps me out a lot. And my calendar is color coded, so I can tell where I'm spending my time.
Mine too.
And yeah, and I can analyze that. And so I think keeping a calendar is important. Taking care of your health, eating right, exercising. Just interviewed somebody the other day on yoga, and that interview about yoga and how to use that to overcome challenges, and that interview really changed my mind about yoga. I was looking at it more as exercising, when it's really more about controlling your mind, meditating, slowing down so that you can speed up.
Oh, I love that.
Those are two things. And after I interviewed him, when I went to the yoga class later that night, I completely approached that practice with a whole different attitude. And one of the things that I'm not good at is slowing down. And that's one of my obstacles in life, is just slowing down. But I've seen many, 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 many times you've got to slow down in order to speed up.
Oh, and that's a reoccurring theme for me. I was at my mastermind a few weeks ago, and that was the one big takeaway that we heard from multiple speakers, is that you have to slow down in order to speed up. So Emily, thank you. Before we end, how can people find you online and connect with you to learn more about you and how you can help them?
My website is emilyharman, HARMAN.com. And you can go on there and schedule a 15-minute free consulting meeting with your company and want to do some consulting, or you can schedule a free 15-minute coaching meeting. But in order to slow down, I have not made my calendar available till mid-September, because I'm moving and I'm going to take the summer off after having worked 38 years straight.
Well, that's well
so
deserved.
That's one way.
Well deserved.
Yep. And then from that website, you can see my podcast, Onward Podcast, which features authentic conversations on facing adversity and moving forward. And you can see all my social media there as well, and connect with me on LinkedIn. I agree with you with what you said at the beginning of the podcast. LinkedIn is awesome. It's an awesome way to meet people and make connections.
Wonderful. Emily, thank you so much again for taking your time to be here with us today, and just giving so much valuable knowledge and content for the listeners to take back. So thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you, Scott.
So as always, guys, remember, this podcast is dedicated to teaching you the simple things that can create that massive success that you truly deserve. So everyone, please enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you again so much for checking out this week's episode. And if you can, head over to iTunes, search for Network Marketing Made Simple, leave me a 5-star rating, basic review. I would be grateful for all of the support you guys can give me. And again, if you'd be interested in learning more how to utilize LinkedIn to grow your business, your brand, and your bank account, head over to my website, www.scottaaron.net. Fill out the form for your free 15-minute discovery call so I can learn more about you, your business, and how we can work together. And again, thank you guys so much. Grateful for you all, and I'll see you next time.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.